people are saying here. So first of all, let me talk about what's been going on here. We spent a couple of nights in the basement this week because of tornadoes, and unfortunately, Jefferson City got hit, and some poor folks lost their lives there. A friend of mine just sent me a picture from Jefferson City, the airport. The tower is now, the runway is underwater. The river is flooding. It's out of its banks, the Missouri River. So the Jefferson City Airport is underwater. And let's see what we got here. Oh, let's see if a student pilot finishes their training, is there a good chance that they will get a position as a CFI? That's a very good question. I think it is if they have the need, if they have the students. Flight schools are always looking for a good instructor, and they prefer instructors that got all of their certificates or their most recent certificate at their place. Just human nature. So what else is going on? I don't know if you guys saw in the news yesterday, there was an accident. It was a Citation Encore that took off out of the Alton Regional Airport. That's one of the airports I fly out of. That is just to the northeast across the river from St. Louis. And it ended up, was on its way down to Fort Lauderdale, single pilot, and ended up in the Atlantic, 310 miles into the Atlantic, crashed. If you go look at FlightAware, you can see where it took off, flew for about 25 minutes and diverted, came back to Alton, was on the ground for about 2 hours. I'm assuming he had some problem, and then took back off. And they lost radio contact with him. I believe it was a little more than an hour before the aircraft crashed into the ocean. They scrambled some F-15s that intercepted the aircraft and said they could see the pilot slumped over the seat. And if you look at FlightAware, you can see it was at 39,000, and towards the end of the track, you see all of a sudden the airspeed starts to drop off, drop off, drop off. And then at that point, I'm sure that the autopilot disconnected and it stalled and went into the ocean. Very sad. So they're still looking for that aircraft and the pilot out there. I think it went into the northeast of Nassau, up that way. So it's maintenance is important. Hypoxia kills. Up at 40,000 feet, you've got maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds at the most of useful consciousness, and that is very little. If all of a sudden you have an explosive decompression, it takes a minute to realize what has happened and time to get that mask and put it on. So 5 to 8 seconds is not much time, not much at all. Let's see what we got here. Philip, that's a good question. I was real concerned about this. Still am kind of concerned about it. But they have not released the name of the pilot, and I have not talked to anybody that says that they knew who it was. So in the end, we'll see. It may have been the guy that owned the airplane. I don't know. The airplane was based down in Florida. I guess it was a transient aircraft. Stuart Payne, something similar. And we don't know. That's just speculation on my part that that's what happened. But I would guess that it was some type of pilot incapacitation, either decompression or heart attack or something like that. Because the airplane obviously flew just fine to get it out into the ocean there. And you can look at its track as it comes down, and you can see it goes on to the arrival and turns towards Fort Lauderdale, gets to Fort Lauderdale, and then just flies a heading after that. And I believe that arrival terminates with a heading for radar vectors. So the autopilot will just maintain that heading basically until the airplane runs out of fuel. Let's see who we got here now. Let's see. Oh, met you at Dallas, Ethan. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah. Let's see what else we hear. Do you fly for one owner, or does your company charter out? The company that I work for does not charter the airplane. It is strictly private, Part 91, and there are 3 owners that are in a partnership, and I fly for all 3 of them. Is basically what I do. Okay, Kevin asked, what's the best way to become an airline pilot? Kevin, if you have no experience whatsoever, the best way is to go to your local airport and ask around, find a place that provides flight training, and go in there and introduce yourself. Tell them you're interested in taking an introductory flying lesson, and meet people who are pilots. Have these people mentor you. Most people in aviation love to talk about it, and they love to help you along, show you what's going on, give you advice. So that's really the best way to go about it right there. They'll never find it. Yep, you're probably right, because if you look on the map, he's talking about the Citation 5 when it crashed. It's way out there. It is really deep out there. So unless it's floating, it's bad. Well, let's see what else we have. Did I ever consider becoming a military pilot? Yes, I did. When I was a senior in high school, I took the military test battery and scored very well on it, and got a slot in one officer's flight training for the Army flying helicopters, and had a girlfriend and decided not to go, and the girlfriend thing didn't work out, and I missed that slot. So that saved me from being a helicopter pilot, and I ended up being fixed wing. If I had done that, I'd probably be a helicopter pilot talking to you guys today about helicopters, and not about the Citation 5 incident over there. But another thing I wanted to bring up also, that you folks may find interesting. There have been a couple of articles in aviation magazines last week about the possibility of single pilot airliners. Apparently a couple of companies have kind of pushed for it. Boeing said that their next airplane is not going to be a test bed for anything like that. That is way in the future, but I think one day it's coming, because they're going to keep pushing for the single pilot airline, and there'll be a lot of resistance. There was an article on ALPA that I saw also, that I looked up this single pilot thing, and the 2018 FAA refinance bill. The FAA had tried to get some money appropriated for research into single pilot airline operations, and trying to do that, but it was denied. They got knocked out. Just because it gets knocked out doesn't mean it isn't coming back, and I guarantee you the manufacturers of these airliners, these large commuter type aircraft, and the airlines are all interested in that. So one day, I don't know when, but one day. Yeah, Kyle, I unfortunately, we were just talking about that Citation 5 out of Alton, waiting to see what happens with that. Go to a good university offering a flying program that's hooked up with a major airline. That's a good path also. Yeah, and if you look at some of these regional airlines also, they've got flow-through agreements with major airlines also. That's another good option. Right now, these regional airlines, a lot of them are hiring people and offering hiring bonuses, substantial. I get postcards in the mail. The last one I got, it was a $20,000 signing bonus. That type of thing. So there are definitely incentives there. They're hurting for pilots. In fact, I had somebody call me today, ask if I could do a trip for them, which I will probably do sometime this week. And in fact, that'll be a Citation Encore also. Great airplane, the Encore. Love it. Love it. Rick Hawkins asked, plans to go to Canada? No Canada plans right now. It's very possible in the future. Most of what we do international is down to the islands. Haven't done an island trip in a while. So we probably are due for one here pretty soon. Let's see what else we got here. Full-time pilots and didn't want full-time. Okay, here's a real good question from Steve Taylor. Said if he had an XLS out of Scottsdale and didn't want full-time pilots, could he get it crewed part-time? Yes, but okay, first of all, you're going to need somebody regardless to manage the aircraft, take care of the maintenance and all that. As far as pilots, you're not going to get somebody to fly it and just be available to you if it's just on a day basis. Anybody doing that is either going to be doing contract work full time, which means first come, first serve, or they'll have a full time job and been doing this on the side. And with both of those, you are not going to be their first priority. So if you definitely have to crew your trips and you're doing that, you're going to need a list of people that, first of all, that are competent, qualified, and that you can work with. And it's not cheap either. An Excel captain on a day basis that's typed and current in at a school like flight safety or semi-flight, it's probably going to be $1,200 a day for that. So keep that in mind. Oh, Tim DeShazer says his son attends Embry-Riddle and has already been approached by a couple of airlines. Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity out there right now. People need to, take advantage of it while they can. Just don't sit around hoping that it'll always be like this. Actually, I think it will be for a long time because there's just not enough people learning how to fly. Yeah. And, even if I just don't see this happening anytime soon. But even if they do go to the single pilot cockpit, I don't see the pool of new pilots being able to keep up with the demand. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, you missed my last live stream? Well, that's okay. This is a work in progress. I'm learning as I do this. Usually about 5 minutes before I go live, it's a total panic because I realize something's not working right. And I'm learning through experience is what I'm doing. So I just got to force myself to go down this path that's not natural and a little out of my comfort zone. But that's okay. That's good for me. Like I said, I'm at least getting it together now where I can show up at a certain time. Isn't that half the job, showing up? So, let's see. A lot of people planning to go to school and college programs, it looks like here. And, he just got his private. Great. Yep. Steve Taylor figured $100 a day. No. Oh, and the part I left out about that, Steve, was, and you probably already know a lot of this already, but other people don't. When you hire somebody like that, it's their day rate plus all the expenses, which is going to be airline to get there if it's somebody out of town, hotel rooms, rental car if that's necessary, meals, all that kind of stuff. There's an airplane out here which just got sold that I helped out on. It was a smaller Citation 1, and they didn't have full-time pilots because it didn't fly that much. And so me and another guy would take care of it is what we would do. Let's see. I have the money, M63. This is a good question. This is from Tofty9754. He says, I have the money, I'm 63. Is it a waste to go for instrument rating, insurance, etc.? Okay, that's not quite complete because what you're not telling me is, are you doing this for your personal benefit or are you doing it as a career? At 63, that's really late to get started. I'm not saying you can't do it, especially if you already know people and have contacts people that are interested in using you. It's always best to have something already set up ahead of time. If you're doing it for the airlines, it's pretty late because they have mandatory age 65 retirement. Captain Crunch. I love Captain Crunch. Oops, held for review. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what we got here. 6 hours flying experience, going to do the Bachelor of Aviation, become a pilot. You know, Sashin, I've got a Bachelor of Aviation, and I'm a pilot. I'm a professional pilot. That's how I make my living. If I were going back and doing it again, I would do it a little different. If you don't have your ratings yet, that's great. That makes more sense to get your Bachelor of Science in Aviation. I already had all my ratings. So I was taking all these courses, aviation courses, which were really repeats of what I had already done studying for the instrument, the commercial, the multi, the ATP, CFI, and all that. So for myself, what I probably would have done if I were doing it over again would get a bachelor's degree in business so that I could use that for other things. Because you're going to find in aviation that if there is a requirement that you have a degree, the requirement is just that you have a degree. It doesn't really matter what it's in. But like I said, if you don't have your certificates and you're already doing that in that program, stay in it by all means and go all the way through the program and get your Bachelor of Science in Aviation. Oh, Steve Taylor. Steve Taylor is saying that for a crew full time for an XLS, it's going to be about $240,000. Okay, I am severely underpaid. No, I'm sure that number includes that was what the employer would pay because he's paying for your insurance, your benefits, Social Security matching, all that stuff. So that number probably is fairly accurate. The question I would have is training included in that because training is very expensive. Because you have to go to some place like flight safety for recurrent. If you're hiring somebody that's not typed, well, now you've got to send him. I don't know if the XL is 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's probably 2 weeks. Now you got to spend even more in sending him to an initial. Hey, Tomac, who says here that he's never going to be a pilot, but he lives vicariously through the videos. Don't feel bad about that. There are a lot of people that do. You are not alone. It is, the thing about it is, it's a great job. It's a lot of fun, but it takes a lot of time to get to where you really want to be and a lot of sacrifice and money and stuff like that. So, buddy, you're not alone there. Don't feel bad about that. For a long time, I played on the, what was the early one when the Apple first came out, the Apple IIe? I think it was the Microsoft Flight Simulator. I used to fly around on that thing, with a little joystick and loved it. That's what I did before I took my first flying lesson. And, I would watch little flying videos and flying programs on TV and stuff like that. I just loved them. And go to the airport. I just read this one. I don't quite understand the question, so I'll have to go on. Okay, Kevin Cole asked, what's the better pilot job, airline or executive, which would be corporate? It really depends a lot on the person, what you want. Airline offers a lot of advantages. You have a regular pay increase. You have predictable hours because you have a schedule. The upper end, the money gets better and better. The drawback is it can be very boring because you're going to the same places over and over again. And then if you get hired at the wrong time and you're kind of out of sync and you keep getting hit by the layoffs, you could be working for 5 years, be out of work for 3, called back, work another 5, and then be laid off again. I know people that had happened to them repeatedly because they hit the hiring at the wrong time. If you hit the hiring at the right time, historically, then you miss all the layoffs because your seniority number is high enough where you never take the cut. The advantage of the corporate flying is the fact that it's very interesting. It's very dynamic. It tends to change a lot. I think you spend, depending on the job, I spend more nights at home than I would with an airline. And I get to do things with my wife that I would never be able to do. I've actually taken her on a trip to the Bahamas. And I guess with the airlines, you could do that. You would have passes where you could do that. So, it just depends on the person, depends on what you want to do. It's, that's very subjective. R. Gibbons asks, he says, do you think since there are not enough pilots at the airlines that they will increase the retirement age? That's a very good question. Some of the people I've talked to have said that there is already a push to push it up to 70. I don't know if that'll happen or not. When they originally it was 60, and it was when they started pushing to move it to 65, it was years till that was changed to age 65. So, hey, Mayhem Pilot, thanks. I appreciate that. That is very kind of you. Okay, that's okay not having a question, man, but I do appreciate it. Thanks so much. You were so kind. Okay, Tim OL, he says corporate pilots tend to be a one-person show where the airline has a heck of a support structure. That's very true. One place where the airlines excel is their support structure. Excuse me. They file for you, they get the weather, they do all of that stuff. It's all pretty much taken care of. You pre-flight, you fly the airplane. You get to where you're spending the night. You do an after-flight walk around and go to the hotel, and you just walk away from the job. It doesn't chase you home like some of these other things. Some of the corporate departments are one-person flight departments. They are one-man shows. Somebody flying a Citation M2, a CJ, a Phenom 100, something like that, could very well be something like that. If you are flying for the airlines, they are all trained exactly the same way. And that's very good because you tend to switch up crews a lot. You may fly with one captain as an FO, and you may not fly again with him for a couple of months. You're constantly changing people, but you're all trained exactly the same way. You're all trained to the same standard. Each person knows what to expect from the other and what to do. So that standardization really helps bring all these different people together and allow them to move along and interact and do that. I've got this little delay here, and every now and then I see myself do my hands like this, and it's like, what's going on over there? What's the worst part of being a pilot for you? We all hear the good stuff. What about the bad or the not exciting parts? That's from Corporate Pilot. Well, Corporate Pilot, the worst stuff would be missing time with my family, missing birthdays, missing holidays, missing, like a Christmas pageant at the church we go to or something like that. All sorts of stuff like that. Missing a talent show at the high school with your kids. That type of stuff. You do get time at home, but you can't predict exactly when you're going to be working and when you aren't. Now, you can, with most flight departments, if you got something important, say, I'm not available. You need to get another pilot for this. If you tell them ahead of time, and that's what they'll do. And that's why I got this call today for this other company, because they got one of their guys going on vacation, and they've got just a day trip. I'm not even sure where it is. It doesn't really matter. But so I'll fill in for them. And so that's kind of the worst. Oh, and also, family emergencies. You may be, and this is the way for the airlines also. It's no different for the airlines than it is for corporate. You may have a family emergency and you're not there. You're out of town. You're in Los Angeles or something like that. And everything is happening while you were gone. And, there's not much that you can do to help or assist. Just finished, Butter King just finished his online ground school. He's got to do the practical test, get your endorsement. Go for it, Butter King, go for it. Tim Ol, I rarely fly with the same FO. It is a tad isolating socially. Tim, that's a very good point because, like I said, I didn't fly for the regionals long as just a couple of years. We were 30 deep on the Embraer, meaning there were approximately 30 captains, 30 FOs. And I would go months before I would fly with the same captain. So unlike what I do, where we tend to talk when we're not at work. In fact, I talked to Mike today on the phone about something that had happened, and we talked about that accident out there at Regional. So you know these people socially also, and they're your friends, and you see to them, and you talk about all sorts of stuff. I didn't find the same thing with the airlines. There was nobody there. I'm sure some people had friends there, and they would go do things with them, but that's not what I found there. I found that when I was doing the charter flying, we were always great buds and would do things together, and we would do things on trips. 3-day trip. We'd spend the middle day going out and doing something. We never did that when I was at the airline, and that's just the situation. That's just how it's set up. Have I seen anything while flying? This is Bossa Nasa 1. Have you seen anything while flying that you couldn't identify? Anything strange? I have seen... I'll talk about the strange things I've seen that I could identify. And it's really... When you get up there 40,000, 45,000 feet, the air is a lot thinner. Everything is crisper that you're looking at, as long as there's not a mist or something. And... meteorites coming into the atmosphere, shooting stars, are really bright and get your attentions. And this happened actually about 6 weeks ago. We were coming back late at night from Teterboro, and a meteorite came down. It was a bright one. And that one actually made the news on the East Coast. People saw it. And there was another time where another one actually just broke up. We saw it come down and it just broke up. The one I couldn't identify was I was flying over Arkansas, and something came up from below us down to the left, and it just shot straight up like a rocket. And I did not get a chance to really get a good look at it or anything like that, but it was kind of startling, and I'm assuming it was some type of aircraft or something, or maybe it was just an optical illusion. But it was pretty weird. That was a long time ago. Yeah, that was way after when I was abducted in '93 by the UFO. So, no, I'm just kidding about that. But that is true. I have no idea what it was. Oh, and sometimes you get some weird clouds out there also, strange looking, especially over the mountains in those high winds and stuff. They start taking on different shapes, little lenticular clouds and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. Nobody's local. You're right. Hey, and that's one thing, Tim, because Tim's saying he lives outside of O'Hare. His first officer lives out of L.A., Las Vegas. When you're commuting, we had a lot of guys commuting who lived in other areas outside of St. Louis, and it's not so bad when you're commuting within the same time zone. You can get a jump seat if you live in New Orleans up to St. Louis, and you're staying on the same time zone. But when you start crossing time zones, that will really wear you out. Like if you're coming from the West Coast to the East Coast or vice versa, that type of situation, that'll really wear you out. And it seems like that crash with the Regional with the oh gosh, what was that? It was a turboprop. Was it the Hibbing crash with the they were getting icing and thought they had a tailplane stall. But those two, I think, had been commuting and were exhausted the night before, couldn't sleep. That was probably a factor in the accident. Do I still feel a connection to general aviation flying? That's junior aviator. Yes, I do, because what I do is pretty much general aviation flying. Even though it's in jets, I'm working out of general aviation airports for the most part. My friends do similar stuff, and a lot of them fly all sorts of different airplanes and that kind of stuff. Some of them are still instructing. yeah. So I definitely feel still connected to it. Let's see. Do you ever? 12 things I like asks, do I ever have a chance to take my wife with me on some of the flights? Yes, she's taken a couple of trips with me, had a great time. It really, one reason she really appreciated it was it really gave her a much better idea of what it is that I do. Uh, and the last one we went on was to Nassau, Bahamas. She had a fantastic time. We had a trip to Nassau and we were actually staying there for a bit. In the end, though, I had to send her back on Southwest because we ended up needing an extra seat in the airplane. But that was no problem because I had warned her ahead of time. I said, okay, things could change in the middle of this. We could end up going somewhere else or something, it's kind of unpredictable. If it comes to it, I just send you back on Southwest. And she was fine with that. That was no trouble whatsoever. Let's see who else we got here. Jet Driver 85 asks, do I have any air traffic controller friends? No, I don't. Years ago, one of my neighbors that lived next door to me was a air traffic controller, tower controller, but that was mid 90s. It's probably been 25 years since I've seen him. But, they tend to be great guys. Every now and then one of them will say, hey, Captmoonbeam, enjoy your videos, that kind of thing. So they watch also, which, I appreciate that. I appreciate everything those guys do. That is a tough job. I don't know how those guys do it. The stress has just got to be unbelievable. And sometimes you can just hear it in their voices too when things start just going crazy because it's a tough job, a very tough job. In fact, they've got an earlier retirement age. It's 50 something. I can't remember what it is. I'm sure it's due to the stress of the job. Let's see. Michael Stern asks, does Mike only work with me? No, he occasionally does stuff for other people. I'm not sure he's done anything recently. I think he does a little bit out of Colombia on occasion. But no, it's not like this exclusive thing. With all you have flown, what was the hardest plane to learn for you to fly? Ken Hardway. That's really a good question. I have never really found one airplane harder to fly than another. I have found, though, that with some of them, the systems were more complex and required actually more as far as learning the systems. So in that sense, that would have been harder. And I would say the two airplanes that would fit that category, would be the Falcon 50 and the Gulfstream. And like I said, it wasn't that they were hard to fly or anything, and it wasn't that you couldn't learn the stuff. It was just if you fly 7 different types of Cessnas, the manufacturers tend to have a great deal of commonality between the airplanes that they manufacture. So if you already know one, it's so much easier to learn another one. But when you go to another manufacturer and they're labeling everything differently, different type systems, stuff like that, then it's more of a challenge to do that. But it's nothing insurmountable at all. Nothing that the average person couldn't do if they put their mind to it and just spent the time studying the systems. Captain Learjet, your brother-in-law works at ATC in Salt Lake City. Yeah. Let's see who else we got here. Tim Hunt says hello from Tampa. Okay, Dick Shin says the hardest to fly, Aeronica 7 AC, 1963. Dick, I tell you what, I have never flown a tail dragger. That's a failing in my career. But I would imagine that flying a tail dragger like a DC-3 would be a pretty big challenge, I would think. just from my perspective here. Let me wet my whistle here. Roy D asked if I've ever met P1D or Steve 01 Knievo. No. I would love to meet them, say hello, sit down and talk to them, trade notes. Both of them. I'm surprised. I'm surprised I haven't run into Steve 01 Knievo, because we go to Florida and the islands a lot. I suspect we're crossing paths at different places at different times is what's going on. Tim Pern asked, did you ever regret leaving on a flight that you would have better off staying home? Yeah, I've had flights like that. You try your best to judge the weather, and sometimes it doesn't work out. I hate it when you have to divert to an alternate, some point other than your intended destination, and you can't get in, can't get your passengers there when you thought that you could get in. That's no fun. People understand though, or at least they should, but it's, like I said, it's no fun with that type of thing. Michael Stern, no, I don't know him. In all honesty, I don't know any. The only internet person that I know that makes videos or vlogs or anything like that, I know Jeff Faviano, and he's predominantly a gamer. He does do some flight sim stuff. And I also know, or I have met Dewey Davenport, who unfortunately was on a trip and recently got sick and ended up in the hospital for an appendicitis. And hopefully he is out now. But those are the only two I've met. So I would love, to meet some others. And like I said, just trade notes or something like that. Because you do this in isolation. You do it by yourself. Like I said, nobody else I know does this kind of thing. Everybody thinks, well, that's kind of an odd thing to do. See what else we got here. Favorite airport to fly to? Like I said, corporate pilot, it's your home airport, coming back home. Oh, Nate's random video says, if you meet Steve-O, he's going to stick you on an electric skateboard. Yeah, you may be right about that. He's a young guy though. He can do it. Gosh, I tried to get on a skateboard before, and it did not work for me. This was before we had electric skateboards. But I'd like to get one of those electric bikes, ride around on one of those things. I think that would be a blast. Hello, Anthony from Clifton, New Jersey. Good to see you. Hey, Mayhem Pilot, thanks. I appreciate that. Yes. He asked, did Mike really fly Air Force One? Yes, he did. He did that during the Reagan era. And I don't think he was flying the 747. He retired from the Air Force flying heavy transports. And while he was the Air Force One, I think he was flying the Air Force One Gulfstream. And that would be like the vice president and, Mrs. Reagan and that kind of stuff. So he definitely met Ronald Reagan and the vice president and the president's wife, and that's what he was doing. And then he left the Air Force when he retired from them, went to the airlines, and actually ended up retiring from the airlines. So I wish I could get him to get on here and talk about it. He's just camera shy. He's got great stories, great stories about his career. He has flown all sorts of stuff. What's the average climb out feet per minute for one of those jets max climb out? I know there are variables. For the Excel, we start climbing out, maybe it depends on the weight, the temperature and the weight, but usually somewhere between the 2,500 foot per minute, 2,800 foot per minute climb, and we hold approximately 250 knots, and so that climb rate will tend to die off once we actually get up in the higher altitudes. Soundman447 asked if I could buy a single engine piston, what would it be? Gosh, oh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one because there's some great ones out there. I would like something like a Champ or a Cub, uh, but then I would also want something, with a little more range, a little faster, to go on vacation with the wife and stuff like that. So the Bonanza, I used to fly Bonanzas, great airplane. Uh, would love one of those, to go fly around on the weekend with the wife, go traveling, that kind of thing. Tim Hunt, I've never flown the Longitude. I'm not typed in that one. Seems like a very nice airplane. I would love to. Let's see, people from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You know, uh, Paul Wadkowski. I'm not sure that's how you pronounce your name. I assume that's why he's not on. You know what? I realize now he wouldn't be posting to YouTube. I know because I follow him on Instagram, and he follows me, and he had posted some stuff there. Or wait, was it Facebook? He's on all three. 1, 2, 3. I follow him on all three. So it was one of those where he had posted some pictures with a very sad frown on his face. Let's see what else we have here. Hello from Wichita, Douglas Santon. You work for the FAA Tech Ops. We fix the stuff that ATC breaks. Douglas, I bet they break a lot of stuff. I bet they have those days where, they're just pulling their hair and banging the mic on the desk. You probably have to have like a box of new mics for those guys. Michael Stern never been to the Reagan Library, so I haven't had a chance to see it. Ralph, I couldn't tell you what it costs to rent a Cessna because I have not rented one in years. The last time I rented a Cessna, I think I was a CFI, training as a CFI. Yeah. Michael Leone, he asked me, he says, have you ever had any problems with your jet passengers where you had to call the police to meet you after landing? No. Drunk and out of control, things like that. I have only had one passenger that just really got drunk, and it was not somebody we normally flew. It was somebody, this was years ago, that had an airplane, and he was interested in buying the airplane from the guy that we flew for. So we took him on a trip, this demo flight. I can't even remember where it was. We went from someplace down to the islands, and by the time we landed, he was just letting his fellow passengers that I guess worked for him, was just letting them have it, and he was obviously drunk, and he was so drunk. I was afraid he was going to fall down the steps and kill himself, but got him off and never saw him again. That's really the only time we had a situation like that. And like I said, that was a different company, a different time. Most people you're going to find are really good to work with. They're very respectful and kind to you. There are the exceptions out there you hear about people working for. And what I say is, if you find out you get in a place like that, find another job, leave. It's not worth staying, Dale Leisure says he has a 182 and loves it. He flies to Sedona all the time. Yeah, I've been to Sedona. Great place, beautiful place to fly to. I've flown a Cessna 182, and I have to confess, I never made a good landing in the 182. I don't know what it was, Dale, but I did not. It's just, and then we replaced it with the Caravan. So that took care of my landings with the Cessna 182. Because the Caravan's a great flying airplane. Easy to fly, easy to land. I think the problem with that 182 we had was it was really nose heavy. Yeah. Let's see. Hello from Houston, formerly from Belleville, Illinois. Well, thanks. I appreciate that, David Higgins. Uh, I bet that I'll have to make more videos of the area that I live in. Right now, we're getting a lot of flooding. Uh, Flooding on the Mississippi, flooding on the Missouri. This week, we spent 2 nights sleeping in the basement because of tornadoes. We had one pass to the south of us, and then uh, the last night, you actually killed some people in Jefferson City. And I was saying earlier when we first started out that the Missouri is up in Jefferson City, and it's somebody sent me a picture today of the tower, and it's just surrounded by water. The water from the river is on the airport now. In fact, where we live, we're kind of halfway between the Mississippi on one side and the Missouri on the other. Let's see. You know, Kylie Kestner, I guess that's how you pronounce it, says, will the Challenger be able to use 26 right, R8 left at Spirit, or will it have to use the south runway? I don't know. I haven't even seen the airplane yet. It's in the paint shop right now. It's getting new paint, and then it's going to get apparently in a new interior and ADS-B. So it will probably be a couple of months till I see it and find out what it could do. But I would think it probably would. The north runway is 5,000 feet, and they've been closing the south runway recently for work off and on, and we see all sorts of airplanes landing on the north runway. Alex S., thanks, I appreciate that. He says, have a great Memorial Day. In fact, all of you folks out there, have a great Memorial Day. You know, I want you to have a good time with your families out there. Hopefully you get some good weather for it. See who else we have. Mike Harrington from Gulfport, Mississippi. And then we have Tommy Johnson from Nashville. You're welcome, Tommy. See what other questions we have here. Let's see. Favorite FBO. The Signature in Nashville, those folks were very nice to me. And also TAC here at Spirit. They're both very nice to us. Very nice. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, here. Good. Michael says, hello from Michigan. How was the advancement of avionics, autopilot coupled with GPS, reduced basic piloting skills? Oh, let's be honest about this, Michael. The autopilot's made me a much better pilot. You know, it's rock solid. You know, I can just put that autopilot on and put my hand like here, and everything looks good. When I flew freight, there was no autopilot. You know, it was single pilot at night, hand flying. And that's really where I developed my instrument skills there that carried on into the future and all of this stuff. And that has really served me well. So as far as me, I don't think that technology has in any way reduced my performance, because basically you're just managing it. You know, you're still flying it even when you disconnect the autopilot. And normally where you're doing that is in the terminal area, coming in to land, doing an approach, takeoff, that kind of stuff. Rarely with any type of airplane that you're actually flying for a job is there no autopilot that would fly during the long segment in between the takeoff and landing. So that's almost everybody. My concern is now that you've got these newer high-tech avionics systems in the training aircraft where people are not really getting an intense, I don't say intense training, but aren't developing their scan like they normally would in the older stuff. I think that may hurt some people in the long run. We'll just have to wait and see how all that works out. You know, still a large part of the corporate fleet out there is all analog instruments. There's still a lot of airplanes like that. And when you start your first job after you get all your certificates, you could very possibly end up in an airplane like that flying one of those. Oh, let's see who else we got here. Um, Hey, rock and roll, thanks. I appreciate that. This is my office at home in the basement, and I painted those walls myself. I don't know if I could move that. I could, you know, I would give you a tour of my office, but I'm not sure. Yeah, probably better shouldn't move it all around. Okay, but I got a bookshelf. I built a book. I have a bookshelf that I built in there. Yeah, where I put all my books and stuff like that. And then on the other side, I built a wall here. You can go back there, and I got other stuff back there. So, but this was, kind of my place. Is what it was. Okay. Oh, Hayden B. No, that's NH Bird Dog. A lot of time in the back of a Citabria doing acrobatics. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Oh, hello from Defiance. Well, you're welcome. Thank you, Def Mills. Now, is that Defiance, Missouri? Because if it is, we go through there a lot. Down 94 and taking the Katy Trail and stuff like that. And you got those little bars there. Great place for lunch to stop and get something. Yeah, now Defiance, you guys are down by the river. And I really hope the water doesn't reach where you're at. And there's Otis Register. Greetings from Rolla. Good to see you. Weekend trip and a Cessna 182. Ooh. Gosh, weekend trip and a Cessna 182. In this area. That's a good question. Fly to Kansas City. There's a lot of stuff to do in Kansas City. They got the World War I Museum. Great art museum. The Power and Light District, cool place to go down there. They got some great places for Christmas shopping, Christmas time. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. I don't see any more. Farmingdale, New York. Adrian Bishop, I can't remember if I've been there or not. I just don't know. I've been to so many places. When I was flying charter, it was always a different place every time. Always different. Let's see what we got here. Do you ever this is a great question. GR8 Leadman, do you ever wake up in a hotel and wonder which city, state you were in? I do. And this is actually kind of funny. And if I wake up, and I've had times where I've woken up in the middle of the night, and I've like in a groggy state and thought I got to go to the bathroom. And it's like, wait, where am I? What town is this? Where is the bathroom? Because all the lights were out, and then hit something and fall over or something like that. But then, what even makes it worse? I'm like, okay, wait, what am I doing tomorrow? And really, every person I talk to, this happens to them at some point, because if you're working in a company like a charter company where everything is different, the next day is different, and you're getting in at all hours and stuff like that, it all blends together after a while, And then when you have those really long days, where you get up early in the morning and then you finish late at night, it's almost like it feels like 2 days later by the time you even get to the bed in the hotel room. This next video I'm putting up was kind of like that. Mike and I went to Kansas City, and we were going to be there all day long, leave at 11:30 and fly to Tucson. Well, we got a day room because it was going to be so long. But still, that doesn't totally, reset you for the next day. So by the time we got in, because it was almost 3 hours to Tucson, I'm thinking it was, by the time we got to the hotel, it was almost 3 a.m. Central Time. Then you end up waking up the next morning early because the sun's coming up and all that. And it was like, on days like that, it's a total waste. I mean, those are just reset days, recovery days from that type of flying. And I made some video of it. I don't think it was very good just because of that. The audio for the ATC was messed up. I got to figure out what happened with that. It recorded the ambient sounds of the engines and all that, but none of the crisp ATC, you guys like to hear. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Def Mills. Okay. Yeah. Olin. Oh, yep. Yep. I know SL. Yep. So, well, have we ever met Def Mills? Let's see. I might even miss your comment coming up here. How did I start my flying career? Let's see. Haven't flown the longitude. Okay. June 6th, Planesavers DC-3 will fly for the first time in I saw something about it. Hey, Brian Kennedy, thanks. I appreciate that. Well, happy Memorial Day to you. And blue skies to you. Fly safe out there, Brian. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you're going to... I'm fixed for Starbucks now. Very kind, very generous of you. But I just lost track of where... Oh, I was waiting to see if he put something up there. Yeah, you know what? In all honesty, Leadman, Mike should be narrating the videos that I make. That's what he should be doing. He would be a great, he's the kind of guy that could do these trailers for movies, the guy that kind of voiceovers the whole thing when they used to do that. I guess that was really what the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that. Oh, okay. Now I got a question for you guys. Do you see a little zombie over here? Did that show up when Brian did the super chat? Because I had a little zombie come up on here. I get all the, on this side, I get all the comments coming up, all the questions and everything. Been there in aircraft maintenance on a road trip. There's some days. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, I've banged my knees getting up in hotels like that. And yeah, but it's like, and then that's just every now and then. Most of the time, you wake up and it's like, oh yeah, I'm back in the whatever hotel in Dallas that I've been in 100 times doing that. Where did Captmoonbeam come from? Tommy Johnson, that was just nothing more than a whimsical, sudden thing at the very beginning when my daughter and I were messing around with YouTube to see how it worked. This was about 10 years ago, maybe longer. And we put up some Christmas carols. We did a couple of duets. She was great. I was really bad, but she was great. And we put them up for family to see. And that's where it came from. I never imagined that this would be what it is right now. Well, Ralph Woodard, I appreciate that. Appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great Memorial Day weekend. Colorado Springs, Colorado. I've been there a number of times, but it's been a couple of years now. Beautiful area. Mike and I both love going to Colorado. What we'll do while we're sitting around is we love to go hiking and stuff like that. And Hanging Rock Lake off of 70. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Great place to hike. Beautiful up there. They have just closed that trail, and you have to have a reservation to go up there now. I don't know if you've ever gone up there and done that. You should. It's beautiful. So you guys saw the zombie. Great. I'm glad it wasn't just me. Def Mills, we haven't met. I'll buy you and your wife dinner sometime. Appreciate it. Thank you. If you promise not to make her eat a cheeseburger. I promise. I will not make her eat a cheeseburger. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I don't know if, Doug Walls? Don Walls? If he's here or not. If he is, thank you so much for the cookies. Oh, there she is. The biggest bird I've flown was a Gulfstream 3. Yep, and I appreciate you being here for the first time. I lost your name. Oh, yeah, that was Soaring 1023. She says Doug Wall. That's who it was. Yeah. He said the cookies were great. Let's see who we got here now. Let me check the time also. Okay. Yeah, the time is starting to click down. Vinny Bafico. Okay, if you are ever in DBQ, is that Dubuque, Iowa? Is that what that is? I am not sure. I have been there. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. All these greetings about Memorial Day. Have I ever had emergencies in flight? Let's see. You were over the middle of the Rockies at 2 a.m. flying cargo and started losing both engines as a Cessna 340. Captain Learjet, that's a really bad place to be. Yes. Yes. I've had a couple of emergencies. One of the first one where ATC declared an emergency for me. This was flying freight going into Harrison, Arkansas. It was a Cessna 210, and it was IFR. I had to shoot the approach, and I left the final approach fix, put the gear down, started down, and as I was going down, broke out, saw the airport, told ATC I had the airport cancel IFR, and right after that I did my checklist and looked down, and I only had 2 gear lights, didn't have one. Okay, now I'm heading towards the airport, and I'm trying to do the emergency procedure for getting the gear down, and the airport's, I'm below the cloud layer, and I've got a commuter plane coming in behind me, so I'm trying to call ATC and let them know what's going to happen, what's happening, but they can't hear me. I'm below their reception altitude, and so finally I think I can't get this, and I'm trying to. So I hit the airport. I do a circle around the airport, and I think this guy's coming behind me, and I can't land. You know, I called him on the radio and told him that I was actually going to do the miss, because even though that I had already canceled, because I couldn't land, I had to go somewhere, and up and out is where I went, because it was a layer that I could get above. Got up, talked to ATC, told them I can't get the gear down, and started turning towards Fort Smith. And then what happened was the alternator failed. I can't remember, was it an alternator or a generator for that airplane? It's been so long, but it failed. So now I'm running on the battery. It's going to take me a while to get there. I'm above the layer, and I can see way in the distance, even though it's going to take me probably 30 minutes, if not longer, to get there, the lights, because the cloud layer towards the horizon ended. The weather was dissipating from the west to the east. And I told ATC that, okay, my battery's not going to last. I'm going to go ahead and shut down, and I will come back up 10 minutes out from Fort Smith and recontact you. And that's what I did. So I did a low approach. The fire department was there. They shined the light on the airplane. They said it looked like it was down. Well, it doesn't really matter, because I got to land anyway, or I'll run out of fuel. I still don't have a down and locked indication. I land, turn off, and the fire department comes out. You know, they get my name and stuff, and I get out, flashlight, look under there, look at one side, it looks one way, look at the other, and the linkage looks totally different. Well, it was not locked down on one side. So we just left the airplane like that, and they actually came out and lifted it up. That's what they did. The other time was in a Citation 650 up in the Northeast Corridor, and we had what was kind of manifesting as a control problem. And I told this story before, but we were at altitude starting to getting a yawing sensation to the right. It was a definite yaw to the right, and we were starting to get a low rumble. And it was definitely starting to affect the control of the aircraft. Nothing, I mean, it wasn't uncontrollable, but you could feel it pulling the airplane to the right. But there was nothing that we had that would show there would be any reason for that. Hold on just a minute here. Hey, Charlie Mason, thanks. I appreciate that. Last time I was PIC in a small airplane, well, the Caravan, I fly the Caravan, 182 was the last time in a really small airplane, and that would have been 3 years ago. But the Citation 650, we ended up making a precautionary landing, and they actually declared an emergency for us. Said, we're an emergency aircraft, which makes sense. I mean, we felt like we had a control problem. We couldn't exactly say what it was from, which was, that would be appropriate. But we never felt like we were in danger at any point, at any time. But what it turned out to be was there was a weak landing gear hydraulic control valve, and the right gear, after we had been at cruise for a while and the hydraulic fluid cooled off, would start to leak, and the right gear was falling down, and the slipstream was catching that door and the gear as it came down, and it would just come more out into the airflow, and that's where the yawing was coming, pulling the airplane to the right. And then I was flying a Duchess. We shut down the engine for training and could not get it restarted. So we just landed. There was no big deal. All right, so I am coming up on an hour here. Oh, Soundman447. I had a family member die in Farmington, Missouri from engine failure in a 210. Well, Soundman, I am really sorry to hear that. I always hate to hear of somebody, that lost their lives in an airplane. That is definitely something that will impact you for the rest of your life, as you know. Very sad. And Hector, good to see you, Hector. I'm just now signing off. So, and Randy Shee, I don't have any other YouTube aviation channels. It's just this one. I've got my Instagram, which at times I really put up a lot. Right, I haven't done anything this last week on Instagram, but I need to. I do mostly the YouTube and the Instagram. This one channel. That's it. All right, so all you guys fly safe out there. Be good, and you have a great Memorial Day. Enjoy the day with your family. Adios.